Oh, did you find them? Oh, that's good. I'm glad you found them. All right, so this video is something that you can find lots of other places, but I'm gonna make cordage out of pineapple leaves. And they have been in the freezer because I've learned that it's easier if they're frozen because the cell walls are softer and you can kind of slough off the outside. So I like to scrape them from the back first because it's softer on the back part of the leaf. And what we're trying to do is get those long white fibers out from the pulp of the leaf. And that part will make the cordage, and it's really beautiful. When it's all done, it makes a really lovely, tawny, soft, smooth string. It's kind of a lot of work for some short fibers, but it's pretty easy to get pineapple at the grocery store, so that's why I'm using it instead of yucca or something that's going to have a longer fiber and make longer cord, because that just doesn't grow here. Not that pineapples do either. But so all I'm doing is using the edge of a spoon to scrape away that pulp, and you lose a little bit of the fiber also in that process. So like that's why you kind of want a spoon that the edge isn't too sharp, because it will cut that fiber, and that's a bummer because then it's either makes it really short, even shorter than it already is, or you know, it's just going to mangle it, so you won't have much to work with. But it's beautiful. And then so I go from the middle of the leaf back to where it attaches to the pineapple, and then up to the top, just because of the way the leaf grows. And I find that you lose less because the fibers start to taper off, and like the outside edge will kind of end there. So I don't think I'm explaining that very well. It just works. It works pretty well. Freezing them does make this a lot quicker and easier. And oh, see, that is a great example of how the leaf tapers and then you lose a whole chunk. Poop. But that's still usable, so there they go. Just like that. And the cordage, if you're going to make cordage right away, I like to let this is really wet, so letting that dry first, and then making cordage with dry material means that you won't have as much shrinkage in your string. But it's really cool. It makes beautiful fiber. Ta-da! So this is about one pineapple's worth of scraped out fiber. So it's just going to dry a little bit, and it's going to be kind of green at first, but it'll dry eventually and fade to more of a tawny color. And I realized I didn't talk about that part, but the pineapple itself, the best leaves are the ones that are the really long ones, kind of in the center to about here. These ones are so short, you could probably use them, but they're a lot of work for not a lot of fiber. And then the leaves in the center, like those guys, aren't really very much worth it either, because they're very, they're new, so they aren't as fibrous as the ones kind of in here. So it's like these ones give you really long fibers, and the leaf is more mature, so the fibers have had a chance to kind of develop more. So I work somewhere where they have pineapples for sale, which is great. So I can keep an eye out for ones that have a lot of leaves and shop for those. This one's kind of dry, so I'll wash those leaves off and put them in the freezer wet, so that hopefully this part will kind of reconstitute a little bit. They do get dried out pretty quickly. So that's that bit. Alright, so to make the cord itself, this one's I've already started from before. If you were starting from scratch at the beginning, I usually just take a piece of the fiber and give it a twist. It doesn't matter which way you go, it's just whatever's comfortable for you. And then let it twist back against itself, and you have a start and a goat. And then to keep going, which I'm going to do over here, but so then you have the two ends. I'm going to add it to mine because I don't need to start another piece. So I'm just going to splice this piece onto the one I'm already doing. And you overlap a little bit. It's okay if the tail sticks out a bit. You can trim that at the end if you want to. And kind of give that a good twist. And then, so I'm twisting up, and then I'm going to twist the two pieces down. Oh, that's got a shorty too. It's nice to kind of splice in different places for both ends here, but that's okay. So I'm going to add another piece on here, give it a twist up, and then go down. So this hand is pinching where the two pieces come together, and just kind of letting that lock back against itself as you go. And then these ones you just keep, the tails you just keep twisting up while you're kind of orbiting them around each other. Cordage is so fun. This is one of my favorite crafty things to do, I think. And when it starts to feel a little thin, like that's all by feel, and depending on how thick you want to make your string or your cord, you can add more or less as you go. And this is that pineapple from earlier. It's maybe an hour later and it's quite dry, or at least dry enough that it won't be as prone to shrink. There's going to be a little bit of variation in the thickness of your cord unless you're really particular about it being even. I don't mind as much if there's some variation in the thickness, so I'm not worrying about it. I'm going by feel, and when it stops being comfortable to twist it, I'll add a little more. And sometimes they get a little uneven, so you can just give whichever side needs a tug to kind of even it back out. And this one felt thin. There we go. And you can make cordage out of a lot of different fibers, obviously, but this one's so pretty. And pretty easy to work with too. Like you don't have to ret the fiber to get it out, which is nice. But that might be fun to try and like letting the leaf rot a little bit and seeing if that makes it easier to scrape off the pulp of the leaf. There's some fibers where that's a more necessary part of the process. And you can make cordage out of other things that it might not look like string, but it might be something that you make a basket out of. You could do that with a lot of different fibers too. Like basswood is really beautiful and lovely to work with, and that when you do red the bark, and then you can make cordage with that, and it doesn't smell good when it's redding, but it smells really good afterward. And there's been some times where I've used fibers that sort of redded naturally out over the winter, and particularly milkweed, either like they were out, they got dried out and kind of weather bleached, and then got knocked over and walked on for a while, and the fiber on those was really, really fun to work with and very easy to get out. But when I tried to replicate that and work with milkweed that hadn't had that kind of accidental processing, it was not as fun to work with, so I've got some learning to do about that. But anyways, the cordage is, it just kind of slowly accumulates. It feels like not much is happening, and then you look down and realize you have a big pile of string. And it's nice to do if you have something else that you're kind of paying attention to at the same time. It's good for audiobooks or TV. So even just in this time, where did I start? I think it was back. Oh, bless you, horse. It's back here. So it's like that loop of string was from just sitting here now, and my splices are a little messy. It was kind of lazy, so I can clean those up later. But there's a lot of other tutorials and instructions about how to do this, what you can use, and all of that. So I'm going to see if I can work out this pineapple stuff. Ooh, and it's starting to rain. And I'm going to go close the windows in the car. But I hope you get the idea. And it's just fun to watch. I like seeing how it works up. Really short. And there's other ways to do this. If you're quite adept, you can theoretically roll the two strands on your leg and then roll them back against each other in kind of one motion to make the cord, but I have not figured out how to do that yet, and it just ends up kind of mashing everything together. But people have been making cordage for a really long time, and I think there's a lot of more efficient ways probably to do it. And you might be able to spin this, but it is really short, so even though this seems kind of laborious, it's actually a really nice process for if you need to keep your hands busy and focus on other stuff. So you might be thinking to yourself, that's great that you can make string out of a pineapple, but then, oh wow, it's raining, yes. So you might be thinking, now what do I do with all that string afterwards? It's not like you can't really, I guess you could make clothing out of it, but it's kind of more like a cord than like something you wear. So there's lots of ways you can use this string. You might decide to work it into baskets, or just lash stuff together, or a lot of other things you might use twine for. But I am trying this project, and I saw a YouTube video of a very interesting person named Sally Pointer, who was making these net bags. Use my toe to hold it. There we go. So she was making these bags out of her cordage, and if you want to know more about that, I think it's a YouTube video. So I'm making a little net and kind of making more cordage as I go and attaching it to the end, and it's really fun. I finally got the right tools, so this process is more enjoyable than trying. I think the last time I was maybe using a popsicle stick as the gauge and a kind of a strange paperclip and tape apparatus for the shuttle. So having the proper tools is kind of much more enjoyable. I only made a tiny bit of cord and I'm already wanting to break it up, so that's kind of annoying, but it's really, really fun. And people have been at this for a really long time, so it's a neat thing to know how to do. And that's how I'm spending my morning.